Welcome back to another episode of the Thunderstock Show. It's a collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, and pursuit of property. Special guest is Adam Goldschmidt. Adam is an EOSI based out of the New York area. Adam has been doing this for a few years now. It's his second time on the show. This season is all about taking the get it once it has capacity tool and looking at how do we use that to work on our business, not in our business. Adam, pleasure to have you back on. Real quick, for those that haven't seen our last episode, can you tell me quickly, when in your career did you realize that it was in your DNA, it was in your GWC for yourself to become an EOSI?
So that happened. I could give you the exact date and time. It was July 22nd, 2022. I was about 3 years into my EOS implementation at the business that I was running at the time. It was a company called Pixify. EOS changed everything for our business. We were scaling the organization, doubling growth, doubling revenues, doubling profits. Everything was just working. And I hit a little bit of a brick wall in like the middle of the third year, where I realized that, okay, doubling this business again is going to be a lot harder than I thought. And there were certain things that were happening in and around the business that I realized my plan was maybe a little bit in peril. So I called my very good friend, Svi Schwartz, who is an EOS implementer as well. He was always a valued resource for me throughout the journey as I started implementing it to my business. We know each other since we're 10. We are born less than a week apart from each other. We have a lot of similarities. We really are like soul brothers. I called him up and I'm like, listen, I got these challenges that I'm working on in my business. I could use your help. He's like, no problem. Absolutely. Came over to my house one night. We're sitting in the backyard, maybe drinking some beers, and we're just talking about the business. And I was talking about like this level of frustration and a bunch of frustrations and where I could go from here. And I don't know why I said it this way, but I said, I don't even feel like I'm doing my job anymore. I feel like I'm doing your job. And my job was to be the visionary of that business. And I was telling him, like, I just feel like I'm an implementer at this point. Like these types of things that I'm doing, this is not what I'm necessarily supposed to be doing at this stage in the game, I don't think. And he says, I'm really sure. He's like, I've been meaning to say this for a while, but you just gave me the window. You absolutely should be doing my job. And and my initial reaction was absolutely not. Like, I've been in tech for 20 years. I like having a nice stable salary. I got 4 kids. They're really expensive. I can't, I don't want to just start from ground zero. I was always an entrepreneur in terms of execution, but like in terms of taking big risks, never really sat well with me. But it got me thinking. And over the next couple months, thanks to see, I met a bunch of people that helped guide me. I spoke to JBS, Jonathan Smith. I spoke to Ben Berman. I spoke to Barry Barrett. I spoke to people within EOS Worldwide, just to get a better understanding of what the life is and what my runway could look like and what setting up my practice could look like. And then I started to obviously fall in love and realize like this is absolutely the life that I want. So on October 1st, 2022, I gave my the owners of my past business, I gave them my 3 months notice, and I told them January 1, all in. January 1, 23, all in on EOS, and the rest is history.
And I love that you know the exact date and time of when this happened with clear specificity, but also that you not only did you weigh the risk reward, but once you thought about it, you went all in and burned the boats. What about sitting on this side of the table now as an EOSI? Do you find like most relatable or easiest to empathize with and connect with the prospective clients, right? Because I assume that as a former visionary, you know what a visionary's day in the life is like, their mindset, quite well. Do you prefer to speak to visionaries? And if so, like, what are some of the stories when you're getting to know a prospect that help them decide, yeah, Adam, not only is EOS right for me, but Adam as a person, as an implementer is right for me?
Okay, so there's a couple things to unpack. There's the why Adam element, and there's the talking to visionaries versus integrators. So just to hit on that point, and then what I've learned through this process in terms of empathizing, I think one of the things that I've really like one of the true areas of growth that I've had over the last 3 years since I started doing this is first off in developing emotional capacity, right? Like we talk about GWC, capacity can be measured on a number of different levels, right? There's physical capacity, intellectual capacity, time capacity, and then there's emotional capacity. I always like to say, I compare it to a closer in baseball, right? A closer in baseball needs to have amnesia because they will blow games and they need to get out the next night and do it again and not blow the game and completely flush that from their memory in terms of what happened. And if you're an owner of a business, And especially if you're in sales and you're a solopreneur and an EOS implementer like me, you absolutely, and it's something that I'm consistently working on, you need to develop that amnesia. You need to develop that emotional capacity because the work that we do is highly emotional charged. Being a solopreneur and having your own practice and being a business owner, having a family takes a tremendous amount of pressure. It can be a really, really lonely place sometimes. And you really just constantly have to figure out ways to build that support system, build that emotional capacity. And what I've learned through that process is to really empathize with owners, right? I was always an entrepreneur. I ran organizations. I was COO of a company called Blue Switch. I was the practice director, visionary at Pixify, but we had owners. Like we had a parent company that owned us that I had to report to. And I always appreciated the investments that they made, but I never really understood the real pressures of ownership until I started this journey. And I think that going through that process myself has helped me become a better coach for my clients because I know where they're coming from. So when you talk to the owner of the business, whether it be a visionary or an integrator, now I have a much higher level of understanding about the pain points that they have. And in turn, it helps me help them better. As far as speaking to visionaries or integrators, I speak to both the same. Like I actually play both sides of the fence. I was visionary when I was at Pixify. I was the COO I was at Blue Switch. So if we were running on EOS at that time and I knew what it was, I almost certainly would have been the integrator. I believe that, as far as like my Colby score, 7832, I'm very, very detail oriented and structure oriented. And I think that really lends itself to me, but not to say that anybody who has a similar Colby should be an integrator. There's plenty of visionaries with that type of Colby. There's integrators with dramatically different. But for me personally, my working style, my Colby profile really, really helps me, as far as being a great integrator. So I've always seen myself more as an integrator than a visionary. And I think that that's some of the value that my clients see in the process as well, because I understand the tools, I understand the process. And I'm really good at taking somebody else. Gino, we were just at our annual recently, and Gino Wickman said this. It's like, to be good at this, you've got to be really like passionate about teaching somebody else's stuff, not to reinvent the wheel, right? EOS works because it works. So when I found EOS, I found the system, and to me, I want to do it in its purest form. I'm able to understand, I think in systems, and I process information in a very structured, organized way that I add a lot of clarity to the client. So I am able, not to sound arrogant, humbly speaking, I do think that there's a level of support that I'm able to give to an integrator, that maybe, I give that level of support to my visionaries too. I think that they like enjoy the feedback, and the perspective that I provide there. But yeah, like that's in my wheelhouse, like just in terms of like keeping things flowing, keeping things connected, making sure that all of the obstacles and barriers are removed without having to get into the weeds to solve the problems. But, I heard a great quote from my friend Kirsten Smith recently. A great integrator just realizes that they have to be sitting in the lifeguard chair for a while, right? Their job isn't to necessarily go into the water to save people all the time. You need to be able to see everything, and then you need to dispatch the people to go to save the people. And that's kind of your job at the integrators, to sit in that lifeguard chair at the top of the beach where you can see everything that's going on. And when you absolutely need to go in, to come down and run into the ocean if you need to, but really to like just, see the whole picture and make sure everything is like safe and smooth and running. So, I always thought that when she said that, that really just like lit up a really, really big light bulb in my head about the integrator's job. And I think that I'm really good at helping people pull themselves out of the ocean to sit on the lifeguard chair.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned your Colby profile, and not just what it was, but like what it meant to you in unique instances, and tying it back to your experience. I have a friend, Bill Stratton, that teaches,
Bill
he does
Stratton's my
Colby.
friend too. He's my friend too. I love Bill Stratton.
I was in his session room, and he was giving a presentation about GWC in terms of assessments. So I think get it would be closely related to your cognitive strengths with Kobe. Want it could be more reliant around your DISC profile, predictive index, or Myers-Briggs, some other type. And then capacity, whether that's a Wonderlic or whatever. I think for a lot of executives that fit the bill for EOS, we know that they have like some degree of intelligence, right, or work ethic.
Yeah.
That must be, right, to have a seat at the table. But when it comes to one of the things that's evident, in 10 minutes, for those of you just getting to know you for the first time listening, that you have a high degree of self-awareness. And you're also, I believe the first metric in Colby is fact finding. So you're high on fact finding. How does that self-awareness help you to identify like green flags or red flags when you're talking to somebody? Because it's a two-way street when you're like us, service providers, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that are like red flags and green flags where you think this is, pattern recognition, this was probably going to be a great fit? Pattern recognition, this might not be, I might not be the right person or the right solution for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna quote my buddy Kirsten Smith again. She's like one of my like my big role models in this community. I really, really like learned a lot from her, especially recently. And she describes her style as a punch in the face wrapped in a hug. And that when I heard her say that the first time, that really, really resonated with me because I would describe my methodology, my approach, my persona in a similar way. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I'm always going to say like it is. I am not good at poker. Like I don't really have a great poker face. Like if I'm frustrated about something, you're going to know I'm frustrated. If I'm happy about something, you're going to know I'm happy about it. And that's who I am. And I love that about myself. And at the same time, sometimes I hate it about myself, but most of the time I'm pretty well aware of that. So to me, you've got to want that. If you want to like for somebody to work well with me, they need to appreciate that approach. Right? Because not everybody wants that punch in the face wrapped in a hug. Some people just want the hug and some people just want the punch in the face. Right? And that's okay. Like there's 870 something implementers in the world right now. And if I'm not the right person for you, there are other people that can give you that. You know, I'm pretty thorough. I'm pretty driven. I'm pretty motivated and I stay on top of my clients. Like I really like, you know, a lot of implementers, they and that works for them. Like they do their sessions and it's effective for them and their teams to disappear for 3 months and come back 90 days later and do it again. For me, I feel like I do my best work with the teams that I'm in more contact with. And it's not to become sticky. I don't want them to be dependent on me. And I actually will frequently ask myself, why am I doing this for them? Am I doing this to create dependency? Am I doing this to fulfill my own needs or am I doing this to help them? And as long as I'm asking that question and my mind and my heart are in the right place, I feel confident going into those conversations. So I want
But
my clients to reach out.
isn't that a high fact finder behavior
A
though?
little bit,
Like, isn't that sort of by
a
your
little bit,
nature
a
to
little bit.
be like, hey, I need to know what's going on, right? It's
Yeah,
not
like
that,
I want them to be there for them. You know,
yeah.
core value, help first, like help always. Like I genuinely love helping people. It frustrates me. Here, like an interesting story. A few months ago, I'm driving with my wife. There's a crosswalk, you know, like where like in a busy intersection in our neighborhood where you press the button and it's got the flashing yellow lights and pedestrians can cross and cars are supposed to stop when those yellow flashing lights are there and give people time. And a lot of people don't stop and they go through and eventually the person's able to cross the street. But there was a night where I saw an older gentleman standing at that corner by that crosswalk, trying to cross the street, watching every single car drive by, but he didn't press the button. So the lights aren't flashing. And like, if I saw those lights flashing, I would have stopped in a second to make sure he goes across. And it bothered me. And my wife said to me, she's like, why is
Mm.
this bothering you so much? I go, okay, so he'll cross the street in 5 minutes when more cars are there. Like, even if it takes him a long time, I'm like, because I want people to live their best lives. Like, I just want him to be able to get where he's going quicker. Right. And
Safely, safely.
yeah, safely, absolutely safely, because he definitely needed
Yeah.
time to cross the street. But like, I want people to live better lives. I want to help them. So if I am doing, you know, a session day with you, and I'm giving you these beautiful tools that are going to help you operate your business, and I spent, you know, now it's getting close to 6.5 years within EOS, you know, both, you know, implementing in my business and as an implementer, I have a high degree of confidence in my skill set and my knowledge of these tools. There's always room for growth. I'm constantly honing the saw and trying to make sure that, you know, I'm sharper and better and on my game and developing that mastery. But I want to share that and I want to make sure that they're using it. And if things fall off track, right, companies, they'll start on this journey and it's very, very easy early on in this journey to get back into old habits. You know, Mike
Mm.
Tyson quote, right? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. You're going to get punched in the face. A lot of punching references today. I don't know why. But
That's fine.
you're going to get punched in the face as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a leadership team member. And it's going to happen within the first 6 months. It's going to happen from the moment you start EOS because it was happening before. And if you don't run on EOS, it's going to happen after. And I want to make sure that their reaction to that getting a punch in the face is to go back to those tools, to realize that the tools are going to be the things that help them go through it. And the more I can talk to them and relate and understand what's going on in the business, the better suited I am to coach them and help them and develop those skills so that they don't need me as much. And if we get into it and we really spend a lot of time together in the first couple of quarters, 9 times out of 10, that drops precipitously in quarters 3 and 4 because they've gotten what they need and they can solve a lot of these challenges on.
Well, I love the punching references, not only because I can empathize with it as someone that was formerly, you know, a martial artist and fought before as a career path, but also because there's one thing that a coach told me long ago. And it was the reason I'm going to continually to punch you in your face is so that I teach you how to defend yourself and see it coming. So if someone gets punched in the face and they close their eyes and they turn away, that's the number one recipe to have it continue to happen. But if they work with you in this instance, in this analogy, they can learn to move their head, keep their eyes open, keep their hands up,
Yeah.
like step back, to deal with it in a way. It's the same stimulus, different response.
Yeah.
Using that as a segue, one of the other criteria when it comes to working with maybe not just like an individual level from like a core value standpoint, but whether that's size of business, industry, whatnot, you had shared that you actually do better working on the larger end of the spectrum with 100 plus employees. Why is it that you prefer that type of organization, or maybe just is it your track record? What is it about that type of client that just suits you well?
Yeah. So when you were asking before, I actually thought about this also. I like to say that EOS is really, really good for companies that have already succeeded despite themselves. Right. So smaller organizations tend to be a little bit more chaotic and they might need my help a lot more than some of those larger organizations. But like as an implementer, we have three roles: teacher, facilitator, coach, right? Like we have to teach them how to use the tools, facilitate the days and the sessions and the use of those tools. I coach them and inspire them to greatness. And my favorite one is the middle, is the facilitation. I really think that where my skill set is in terms of holding the room, keeping the focus, keeping the engagement, making sure that there's good, open, honest, kind conversation that's not mean spirited that's going on, that's really, really attempting to solve issues. I just feel like the larger organizations are more ready for that. And when I can do more facilitation, like my favorite session days are when I'm doing a lot more facilitation. Like that's where I really, really feel like I shine. So, for companies that have already succeeded despite themselves, I think a lot of the times that's the thing that they need the most,
Mm.
right? In the front, in the beginning, probably a little bit more teaching, but as you get further along in the journey, I think where the value comes into play is the facilitation and the coaching as well. Like I'm going to be brutally honest, radical candor with my clients. I'm going to tell them the things that might be uncomfortable for them to hear, but they need to hear, and always go there. I never don't go there wherever there is. But I think that I'm really, really able to flex my facilitation muscles the best when I'm working with larger organizations that have already achieved that degree of scale and then helping them get to that next level, whatever it may be. I think I've refined it a little bit since we spoke. I think 50 and up is really more the wheelhouse than the 100 and up at this point, but that's kind of
Mhm.
the point.
Well, with some, you have some tech background as well. 50 could have a much higher revenue threshold than 100, depending on
Totally,
the industry, right?
totally, totally. And
So
again,
I think that's a good awareness
yeah, and with
iteration.
AI, where AI is, if anybody's not aware of what that is yet, you should look it up right away. But with AI being where that is, like people count is going down. Like people are like almost every single client that I have when they're looking at their vision going forward, their margins are increasing, their headcount is not increasing at that same clip. It can't. That's not the way of the world right now. And I just think that the large organizations are ready, more ready to do that. There's, less tribal knowledge, more commitment to scale and growth.
No, that's a well thought out answer, Adam. Now I want to pivot into the other theme of the show, which is the idea of working on your business versus in your business. I know EOS has some tools that help, people being facilitated to do this, whether that's those are rocks or the 1 year plan, VTO. But what are some of the ways that you are looking at working on your business versus just, letting it work on you and being the person that fulfills the daily task and the day to day?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question, because I think we talk in EOS about the five leadership abilities, right? You need to be able to simplify, you need to be able to delegate, predict, systemize, and structure. Those are the five leadership abilities that we talk about. I believe there's a sixth critical leadership ability. And maybe it's a combination a little bit of prediction and systemization, but time management. I think that the most effective leaders are really, really, really good at managing their time and their energy. So for me, in terms of balancing working in versus on the business, I have this concept. We talk about rocks, right? And if you don't know what a rock is, again, Google it, look it up. But when we think about rocks, we have this big jar and there's the big rocks, the sand and the pebbles. We've all seen the example. What do? You put the rocks in first. My concept, my philosophy is we should treat our calendars the same way. So if I know before the quarter starts what my major priorities are, that's the first thing that goes into my calendar before I do anything else. And all of the other meetings and all of the other, fire drills that I may or may not have to get involved in, those come second. Like it's really, really like it takes a lot of discipline to keep your eye on the prize and the big picture. But to me, that's the most effective way, is to use my calendar to my advantage. Everything I do. If somebody says, call me, even if they don't want the invite, I'm putting it on my calendar because I'm going to forget. My mind goes a million miles an hour and I want to help people constantly. And I'm always looking for opportunities and things like that. So I'm a calendar junkie. And as much as I can impart that on other people and show them, again, high fact finder, right? And, all those types of things, I want to help people use these same methodologies. I almost say like, people who are really good at managing their time are also really good at filling up a trunk for a long trip. in their car,
Mm.
like, and probably are good Tetris players because you just know where to fit all the pieces. Right. So for me, that's the key is like, okay, I have my time blocks to work on the business. I have my time blocks to work on myself, and I have my time blocks to catch up and do all the other things that I need to do. And as long as I religiously protect that time, I think that that's really, really important.
To that point, I think time management is, for anyone listening, if you could increase one skill, and this is guilty admission for my own part.
Yeah.
One of my goals for 90 Day Rocks is to be much more proactive with my calendar so that time allotment is in line with the rocks. And I think that's like a meta skill. And I'm glad that you added that sixth leadership skill there. But, when it comes to developing your business and growth, there are few and far between that are like, hey, I have as many customers as I'm able to have capacity to serve. I'm good. And if you're there, please share how you got there. And if you're not, please share some of the ways and methods that have worked for you or that you plan to do to get to that point.
Okay. I'm not sure I get the question though.
So the question is, when it comes to finding the right clients that we described earlier, who
Yeah.
GWC it, like what are some of the things that, if you're already found all the right ones that you want to work with and you're completely full and you just are referring out, can you share how you did it? And if you're not, can you share how you plan to get closer to that
Yeah.
endpoint?
I'm very, very driven. I'm very, very passionate. I don't think, I hope, to God, I'm a very spiritual person and I know that God controls everything that's going on. I hope to God that I can get to this point one day where I could say I have enough clients and I have too many clients. I don't see that happening because I love what I do. Right. I work really, really hard to do what I do, and I want to do as much of it as possible. So I'm always willing to take on more at this point, right? There's going to be a point. I hope I get to the point where I physically cannot do it anymore so that I can, and I have referred clients out to people. They're people that I've met that I know won't work well with me. And I'm just going to get them to somebody who I know can help them better, whether it be geographically, whether it be psychographically, and in terms of personalities and things like that. I'm going to be the working experience with me is going to be fun and it's going to be intense. And some people need a little bit more of like a flat line, right? But as far as, for me, I'm always pushing. Like I always want to, and it's not a scarcity thing. It's an abundance thing. It's that I feel like I have an abundance of help to add to the world. I work with nonprofits. I do a couple pro bono clients where I just do it because I want to be able to put more EOS into the world and help more people. Right. And people say, why? Like, why would you do that? Like you could sell that time. It's very, very valuable. I said, that's okay. It's okay. I sell plenty of other days. Like I want to give a couple back to the people who can't necessarily afford it, that really, really need it, maybe even the most sometimes.
So living help first, not, it's not just a core value. It's a way that you schedule out your calendar and using helping others as dedicated time to, not only give back, it makes you feel good. It's part of your spiritual calling and
Yeah.
things that you're commanded to do. But, I believe that God helps those that help others, right?
Yeah.
And help themselves.
And at the same time, as much as I push and as much as I'm not gonna say I'm dissatisfied because it's not the truth at all. I love what I do and I love every minute of it. Even the struggles are great struggles, are great problems to have. And my worst quarters, I think back to where I was, like I punched myself in the face. There we go, punch in the face. Like when I think that way, I almost like, what's wrong with you? Your worst quarter is still better than any other quarter you ever had doing anything else, right? So it's just very much rooted in purpose, right? That's what it is. And it's, making sure that I'm taking care of myself just so that I can be my best self with my clients and then for myself and for my family too. Living that EOS life is huge. Part of why I love what I do. Even when I'm very, very busy, I still, and again, somebody should challenge me on this and get me to the point where it's more of a challenge. But like, I am extraordinarily present in my kids' lives, with my wife, around the house. Like, I really enjoy my life. Like, I can turn off my business for 2 weeks, a couple times a year, and not worry about it. And I would not be able to do that doing anything else. So I constantly count my blessings. Like, really, like that's such an important thing, the gap in the game. And it's easy to get stuck in the gaps and to focus on those things. But I'm extraordinarily grateful for what I do have as well. And that usually magnifies and adds more.
Very cool. Last question, not super deep. We're right around time. Is Adam, how can people get in touch with you and connect?
Very cool. One of my big initiatives since we last met, I launched a newsletter. I have a monthly newsletter that goes out. So if you go to uptheirgrowth.com, UPTHEREGROWTH.com, Their Growth is my LLC. There's actually two links, two things you can do on that site. Number one, sign up for my mailing list. And number two, you can go to my EOS website where I have a ton of content materials, blog posts, client testimonials. And obviously you can get in touch with me to learn more about EOS through either of those places. So that's really the best place to go. It's also a lot easier to remember uptheregrowth.com than it is to remember eosworldwide.com/Adam Goldschmidt. Good luck spelling my last name. So, that really, if you want to learn a little bit more about how I operate and how I think and how I like to coach and inspire people and the things that do, my mailing list and my email newsletters that I send out is a really, really good place. And then LinkedIn, I put a ton of stuff. Anything that's on my newsletter goes on LinkedIn anyway. And I just use that as a venue to really, really provide more information, make it a resource, make it that, I like to, I've had friends that tell me that my profile is a destination. Like they always want to see what's up. And that's like some of the most heartwarming things that I can feel. So I guess I got to tell people to go to LinkedIn too, because it's good stuff.
Very cool. Thank you, Adam. And thank you everyone for listening. My hope is that you find some value in this and you share it with a friend. Until next time, be well.